In recent years, Quebec City's Coliseum owed much to the box office appeal of Jean Beliveau, idol of French-Canadian fans, who helped draw a record 1 million attendance in the Quebec League in one season.
But if I may, it's a pleasure to be here to introduce one of the greatest opponents I've ever faced. A real gentleman. You say louder, it should be real loud. His name is Jean Beliveau.
I tried to skate like him. I tried to make plays like him, but it didn't work all the time.
Up they come. Beliveau at center ice. He gets it over. It's cleared. Going right in and goal.
To the outside world, he was the perfect gentleman. Poised, elegant, always impeccably dressed. Children adored him. Reporters admired him. Even his fiercest rivals respected him off the ice. But the moment he stepped onto the ice, something changed. That same calm, dignified man became a force so dominant, so utterly unstoppable, that the greatest players in NHL history spoke of him in hushed, almost fearful tones. Ken Dryden once said, "Facing him was like facing a massive wave crashing toward you. You cannot stop it. You can only hope to survive after it passes." These are the stories about his terrifying greatness that you have never heard before. In the early 1950s, Detroit Red Wings captain Ted Lindsay, nicknamed Terrible Ted, made a habit of deliberately targeting the league's most skilled players with elbows, dirty stick work, and relentless psychological intimidation. And his favorite target was this elegant gentleman. For a time, he responded with patience and restraint. He was not a fighter by nature. But by 1955, he had reached a quiet conclusion. The only way opponents would respect his talent was if they also feared his strength. On February 17, 1955, at the Montreal Forum, Lindsay pushed him too far. After absorbing one cheap shot too many, he exploded in a rare moment of fury. He swung his stick with such force that it nearly blinded Lindsay in one eye. It was not simply an act of self-defense. It was a message delivered to the entire league. The gentle giant had awakened, and he would not be bullied again. From that night forward, Ted Lindsay never looked at him the same way. Years later, Lindsay said, "Every time I hear his name, I stand up. That is the absolute respect I have for a man who could beat you with his talent and his fists if you did not know your place." In an era when players routinely blindsided each other without a second thought, he received a most unusual courtesy from Gordie Howe, a man widely known for the most vicious elbows in the history of the league. Howe was not a gentle player. He was a predator. When he spotted an opponent with his head down in the corner, he took full advantage. Every time, with everyone. Except one man. At a gala years later, Howe revealed something that left the room speechless. He said, "When I went into the corner with anyone else and saw them with their head down, I would take the opportunity to knock them down. But when I went into the corner and saw him with his head down, I would shout, 'I am coming,' just to make sure he had time to brace himself." Think about what that means. The most ruthless predator in the league felt compelled to warn his prey. That was the kind of authority he carried. Not fear of retaliation, not rule of law, simply the weight of a presence so commanding that even the most dangerous man on ice felt the need to be fair. He himself once described what it was like going into the corner with Howe. Trying to strong-arm Gordie off the puck in a corner was like wrestling with a telephone pole. In most sports, you stop an opponent by hitting him. That is the logic of physical competition. But with him, something strange happened. Players did not want to hit him at all. Bobby Hull, the Golden Jet, the man with the most powerful shot in the history of the game, once shared a story that perfectly captured this psychological phenomenon. According to Hull, opposing players regularly felt an invisible barrier when attempting to use physical force against him. It was not because they feared retaliation, though he was fully capable. It was because his presence, his dignity, his sheer commanding aura made the act of hitting him feel almost like a violation. Hall said, "Our attitude was basically, 'Excuse me, sir, may I try to take the puck from you?' We did not want to engage him physically the way we did with everyone else. We just tried to skate alongside him and poke the puck away if we could." He never seemed rattled, never found himself in a vulnerable position. He was always in control of the game and always in control of himself. That is not skill. That is something far more powerful. That is dominance so complete it rewrites how opponents think. In the 1971 Stanley Cup Finals against the Chicago Blackhawks, the Montreal Canadiens were on the verge of tearing themselves apart from within. Veteran forward Henri Richard had publicly called rookie head coach Al McNeil the worst coach I have ever played for, after being benched. The tension was explosive, the kind that destroys championship runs before they even reach the finish line. What happened next revealed something about him that no statistics could ever capture. He did not call a team meeting. He did not raise his voice. As his captain, he simply walked across the locker room, quietly approached Henri Richard, and gave him one single, gentle squeeze on the elbow. Right at the moment, Henri Richard was preparing to unleash another round of damaging words to the press. The message was received instantly. There were no more outbursts that night. Journalist Ken Campbell wrote years later, "All it took was one quiet squeeze of the elbow from him. Like everything he did, it was silent and subtle, but the impact was enormous." Teammate Rajan Houle added, "No one was bigger than the team, and he was the one who made sure every single one of us understood that, without ever saying a word." Montreal won the Stanley Cup. Henri Richard scored the deciding goal in Game 7. Before the 1956 to 1957 season, NHL rules stated that a penalized player must serve the full 2 minutes in the penalty box, regardless of how many goals the opposing team scored during that power play. It was a rule that existed for years without anyone questioning it. Then came the night of November 5, 1955, at the Montreal Forum. Montreal Canadiens faced the Boston Bruins. In the second period, 2 Boston players, Cal Gardner and Hal Lako, were both serving penalties simultaneously. Montreal deployed what can only be described as a devastating power play unit. Doug Harvey, Rocket, Bert Olmsted, Bernie Geoffrion, and him. What happened next took just 44 seconds. He scored 3 consecutive goals, a complete hat trick, past legendary goaltender Terry Sawchuk. The goals came at 42 seconds, 1 minute and 8 seconds, and 1 minute and 26 seconds. The carnage was so extreme that NHL executives called an emergency meeting after the season. On June 6, 1956, the league passed a new rule. A penalized player may return to the ice immediately after the opposing team scores. That rule exists to this day, written specifically because of him. Rocket, his teammate, once said, "He had the most remarkable shot I have ever seen in my playing career. He was a wonderful man, but on the ice, he could help this team in ways no one else could." Before the 1971 playoffs, the Boston Bruins were considered the most dominant team in NHL history. Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito had shattered every scoring record imaginable. No one believed Montreal Canadiens, a team in the middle of a generational transition, had any chance. He was 39 years old. It was his final season. Bobby Orr himself later said, "I believe he is one of the greatest players who ever played the game. He did not just change a game with his skill, he changed it with his character. There is no greater legacy than that." Yet it was precisely that character, that unshakable inner force, that drove an underdog team through 7 brutal games against the most feared roster in the league. The image of him at 39, still leading the attack against superstars nearly 20 years younger, was not just inspiring, it was terrifying in the most profound sense. A reminder that true greatness does not decline with age. It simply finds new ways to express itself. He said after the victory, "The greatest satisfaction was that not one reporter in that room believed we could win. The young players looked to me, and I knew I could not show a single moment of fear. Montreal won. The dynasty fell." 6 stories. 6 different ways the same man made the greatest players in NHL history feel something they rarely felt. Genuine, unshakable awe. He was not just a hockey player. He was the standard. If this elegant gentleman left an impression on you, drop a comment below, like the video, and subscribe so you never miss another story like this.